This is one of the most interesting Nollywood movies I've seen, and I could tell you, it is worthy of recap. The film begins with a happy family driving home on New Year's Day, 2000. The parents joyfully sang while their twin boys were seated in the back. The father sees a woman in the rain having car trouble and offers to help, not realizing it is an ambush. Two armed men emerge from the passenger's side. The children were in the back seat, but the robbers were not aware of this. The parents granted their requests for their valuables. Fearing for their lives, the mother prays, which irritates the robbers, as one of them retorts, "God will not save you." They opened fire on them, and a tiny glass grazed one of the boys on the face as they cuddled, sparing them further harm. Following the departure of the armed men, the boys exit the vehicle and open the driver's seat, causing their father to collapse. They held each other's hands as they watched their dead parents. Many years have passed, and the boys have grown up. One of the twins, Akin, is notorious for being in and out of prison all his life, and his rifle handling skills have earned him the nickname Kalashnikov among inmates. He bids farewell to another ex-convict, Adura, a former bullion van driver, and they make a commitment to stay in touch. His foster mother, Auntie Morenica, then picks him up. On their ride home, she briefs him on the happenings in the family and how his brother, Wale, got promoted and is resuming his new job today. From his reaction, it is evident that they are now distant. On the other hand, Wale, the other twin, is a policeman who just got promoted to the SWAT team and it's his first day. He reports to Mr. Daniel, his boss, and is told to strap up for an operation. An obnoxious officer, Simon, shows contempt towards Wale's inclusion to the squad and is berated by another officer named Afe. The friendly Afe introduces herself to Wale and tells him to ignore Simon's antics. The SWAT team infiltrates an underground drug gang exploiting child labor and kills numerous gunmen. When they thought it was all over, two shooters attack and Wale reacts quickly, seizing Simon's gun and shooting the two men. His superior and other officers applaud the deed, but Simon downplays his heroism. When Akin and Andy get home, she suggests they go to his brother's house because she received a letter from a robbery gang, known as the Ojuju Boys, terrorizing the neighborhood and threatening to return later to collect a ransom. Akin laughs at their threats because he has no intention of leaving. A knock is heard on the door and Wale is shown to be the visitor. The two brothers exchange compliments sarcastically. Their aunt laments at their enmity between themselves. Even though she had raised them with love, they behaved like enemies. She informs Wale of her initial proposal to Akin, but Wale informs her that Akin is an adult and capable of making his own decisions. This infuriates Akin, who expresses hatred toward Wale, calls him reticent, and expresses hurt that Wale is not outspoken about the fact that they are twins to others. This is primarily due to the lifestyle Akin has chosen to live and Wale not wanting him to have an impact on his career. Furthermore, that night, after Andy had left with Wale, the gang arrives and surrounds Akin, who had been ready to use a baseball bat to attack any intruders. One of the gang members recognizes Akin, and calls him by his nickname Kala, which I will use for the rest of this recap. He then takes off his mask, and Kala recognizes Isra, a long-lost friend with whom they have shared history. Since there is honor among thieves, they leave after exchanging contact information. The next day, Officer Montserrat briefs the team of the various car hijackings taking place in the city. Wale inquires as to why they have yet to apprehend the gang terrorizing the neighborhood, to which she responds that it is the responsibility of the local police, not them. Afe eventually offers him the contact information for the local DPO so that he can pursue the case. Kala meets up with Isra later and he introduces him to the rest of the gang, Kahinde, the gang's weak link who loves to show off. Poison, who for some reason wouldn't get Kala's name right and immediately shows his disdain for him. Outside, Kala tells Isra about an idea of a bullion van heist and suggests for a team up with his gang. Isra tells him he will deliver the idea to their gang leader, Shadow. The gang's lone female member, Goldie, interrupts them. She casually flirts with Kala, who tells her to own up and ask him out. Goldie smiles and then proceeds to leave on bike. He is more drawn to her as he loves a lady who could ride, a bike of course. The SWAT team throws a birthday party for Officers Daniel a few days later in his home. Wale is struck by the sight of a female attendant in the party but is informed that she is Daniel's daughter and she doesn't like officers. But that doesn't stop him as he exits the room to the kitchen in search of her. When he sees her, he offers to do the dishes with her. Even though cops aren't her thing, she couldn't resist. She has butterflies too. She says she's Kempsey, and he introduces himself. The next day, Wale meets up with the local DPO who has retired his fate in the apprehension of the local gang but agrees to be of help to Wale's cause. Shadow, the ringleader who owns a mechanic workshop but that's just his side hustle, meets with Isra and Kala, and after hearing the ideas Kala has, he accepts and with the first target already acquired, they quickly enlist the help of Adura, for his inside knowledge of bullion vans, a getaway driver, and Sanusi, an ex-military expert whom they will get the assault weapons from. After 3 months of thorough planning, it was time for execution. One morning, the gang disguised as garbage collectors and ambushes a bullion van, after Goldie takes out the escort with an RPG. They force the police officers to surrender while the gang flees with the bags of money. An officer tries to grab a bag that fell during transit but is shot by Isra. Kala bemoans Isra's action so as not to jeopardize the heist. The group arrives at the place where the money will be transferred to another van. Kala confronts Isra and is furious with him for his actions during the operation. After they are separated, Shadow informs Kala of the inappropriate timing of his complaints, and they swiftly split. Meanwhile, Wale learns from Kamsi, with whom he is now in a relationship, that she is pregnant. This excites him, and he immediately becomes inventive. He collects a loose thread from the bed sheet and proposes to her. She accepts, and they both are overjoyed, until Wale receives a call from work and learns of the robbery. At the robbery scene, Simon tells Wale that the robbery was carried out by professionals because they had fake license plates and RPG, and he mocks him for wanting to chase after street thugs. But Wale's subconscious still believes the Ojuju boys have something to do with it. He gets a call from DPO and rushes over to him. Kahinde, who had been in a fight the night before in a club, was identified as one of the gang members and was arrested. When questioned by Wale, he refuses to divulge any information, claiming he is not a snitch and demanding to be sent to prison instead. Wale leaves, hoping prison will give him time to reconsider. Kala, who is enraged by Isra's defiance of the plan, is concerned that the police will be drawn to them. His now girlfriend, Goldie, assures him that Shadow will not let anything happen to them, recalling how he saved her from being raped and bringing her to the gang. Her words of comfort aren't enough, so she implores her girl magic, which does the trick. Meanwhile, Daniel mutes the TV as they only talk about the police's incompetence in apprehending the robbers and implying the police may have a hand in it. Wale and Kamsi walk in and he immediately starts bragging about how Wale saved his life the first day he joined the SWAT, which is nothing new to her as she has heard it countless times. She walks away to get a drink for Wale, and the men begin to converse. Wale asks for Daniel's permission to marry his daughter. Daniel is surprised because it has only been 3 months. However, Wale assures him that he cannot be mistaken. Daniel, moved by his words, bestows his blessings only if Kamsi accepts him. At Auntie Marenika's, Wale is taken aback by the new appliances that Kala has purchased. Auntie Marenika guarantees him that Kala has changed and now has a new job that she cannot name. Nonetheless, she inquires about the wedding preparations and is heartbroken to learn that he wants a small wedding, strictly by invitation only, primarily because he does not want Kala to attend and make a mess of things. This irritates Auntie Marenika, seeing as Kala had been put in jail when he was just 14 for stealing drugs for Wale, who would have died if he didn't, and that he owed Kala his life. He inquires about Kala's subsequent arrests. He tells her that Kala is beyond redemption because he was raised in similar circumstances as him but chose to do better. Before leaving, he tells her not to invite Kala to his wedding. When Kala returns, he hears Auntie's voice and asks Wale, who is leaving, what the argument is about. Wale didn't hesitate to say it's because of him. When Wale inquires about his source of income, he says he's a mechanic. Wale knows he's lying and simply tells him he's done with him and leaves. Even though Wale had warned Kala from attending his wedding, he shows up anyways with his entourage and their fleet of fancy cars. Wale, visibly angry at their presence, refuses to make a scene as even Auntie is happy of Kala's presence. They quickly take over the event, spraying money indiscriminately, disgusting Daniel and the other guests, and poison, even blowing smoke in Auntie's face. Daniel, who prides himself on being a good judge of character, couldn't understand why Wale had to omit the fact that he has a twin brother, and Wale explained that he had always wanted to be a policeman, and with his brother being an ex-convict, the chances of that happening were slim. And because Wale did not include that information in his file, Daniel is faced with the decision of reporting him to internal affairs. Back at his desk, Wale muses over the course of his career as his colleagues further complicate matters by speaking behind his back. However, Afe is always there to offer him consolation through her soothing words. He immediately leaves after receiving a call from DPO informing him that a particular bird in his prison is getting ready to sing. Kahinde, who had seen videos of Wale's wedding and his gang members spraying him with money on the internet, feels abandoned by them and tells Wale in the hopes of gaining his freedom. This revelation quickly springs up concerns for Wale as he knows Kala is in over his head. Shadow, who has seen the videos, also chastises the group, particularly Kala, for being careless because he takes Kala for the intelligent one. Having explained that it was his brother's wedding, Kala apologizes and promises that nothing will come of it. If anything were to prevent Shadow from leaving the country as planned, he claims he would be furious. He also mentions a brand new mission, which surprises Kala, who is even more surprised to learn that it is Isra's idea. According to Isra, who describes how he was tipped off by a banker friend, the operation is worth over 200 million naira, and the two targeted banks are expecting 100 million each. As a result, they will have to perform 2 operations. Kala is enraged by this because he perceives it as greed and believes the information's reliability is in doubt. I don't see how this is a problem given that greed is the foundation of their entire operation. However, he continued, because he had done his research, he explains how money is moved in the bank. This angers Isra, who believes that Kala doesn't want anyone else bringing the mission. An argument ensues, and Kala engages in a face-off with Poison, who already didn't like him. Shadow instructs them to vote on it because their group is based on democracy. After Kala lost, he leaves because he doesn't want to be associated with the group's ill-conceived plans. Goldie follows him and manages to convince him that the plan is meaningless without his intellect and that the funds will truly set them up for life, in which they will ride into the sunset like Bonnie and Clyde. As Kala leaves with Goldie, Wale drives in, just missing him by a split second. Even though he previously disowned him, it is clear that he loves Kala more than he lets on. He found the mechanic shop that Kala claimed to work at, and he is stopped by this friendly-looking guy before Isra spots him. Isra informs him of Kala's absence, and he says he came to thank them for showing up on his wedding day. He asks if it's Shadow's shop, letting them know he knows everything. Isra immediately asks him to leave before his colleagues come for him. Later that evening, Goldie confronts Isra about his plans for the robbery in a club, but as she predicted, he has none. Then Kala enters and she leaves them both to devise a strategy. After some awkward silence, Isra refers to him as an orphan, to which he responds that they are both orphans, thus putting a stop to their bad blood. Kala wonders why he didn't tell him about the mission, given that they spent the entire day together and could have devised a better approach. But Isra's attitude isn't new to him. He's always been a credit hugger and a greedy man. Isra explains to Kala that he thought he could provide the mission while Kala brings the plans, to which Kala responds that he has a plan and that everything must go exactly as planned, to which Isra agrees. The next day, Wale peruses the photographs of himself, Kala, his parents, and the one of his wife. He struggles with the idea of telling Daniel everything he has learned about his brother because while doing so might save his new family, it will likely destroy the other. When he sees Daniel, he decides not to say anything, and Daniel departs for his doctor's appointment. Meanwhile, the gang now parks some distance from the bank entrance, lurking and waiting for the policeman to open the safe. The moment he does, Poison shoots the security guards who have been requesting that they move. The security men collapse to the ground while they quickly kill the remaining police officers. The remaining members of the group descended from a waiting vehicle, some riding dispatch bikes loaded with bags of cash. On his way to his doctor's appointment, Daniel receives a code red alert about an ongoing robbery on his police radio and quickly changes his route. Isra deviates from the plan once more when he requests explosives to blow up the ATM in order to get more money, disregarding the fact that there was less time left. They moved the civilians and guards who were lying on the ground, as the ATM explodes and currency notes fly everywhere. After gathering what they could, the group starts to leave. In the meantime, one of the guards grabs a dead policeman's gun and fires at the group's vehicle. He hits one of the gang members in the shoulder but is killed by a follow-up shot. Daniel and his men spots them and a chase ensued, but they quickly lost them when they entered an alley. The gang proceeds to change vehicles while exchanging shots with the police. Kala proceeds to defend their fort while Shadow poured petrol on the other bus, during which he shoots Daniel in the stomach, fatally injuring him. Shadow sets the bus ablaze as they make to escape. When they get at their hideout, Kala confronts Isra right away, accusing him of being responsible for the death of his father-in-law and the member who was shot. When they are separated, Shadow tells him not to worry because death is part of the job and tells them to be ready for the upcoming operation. Kala declines to take part in it and demands a share of the work they just finished. Shadow refuses to share the money to anyone until the final job is completed, infuriating Kala, who points his gun at Shadow, resulting in a Mexican standoff. Adura persuades Kala to drop his gun and accept the job, but Isra and Poison needed a little more convincing before they finally drop their guns. The rest of the SWAT team and Kamsi are informed at the hospital that Daniel did not survive. Wale comforts Kamsi as the squad mourns Daniel's passing. Later, when Simon shows them a video of the shooter, Wale recognizes him right away. As he intends to confront them personally, he leaves the hospital without informing the squad of his knowledge. However, the mechanic's shop is now empty, so he moves on to Auntie Marenika's house. He yells for Kala and asks if he's hiding in her house. She asks why, and after hearing about the robbery, the passing of his father-in-law, and how one of the masked men resembles Kala, she essentially tells him that there is no case if there is no face, and that he shouldn't always link Kala to criminality. Outside, Adura talks with Kala, making him see different perspectives and how the next job would need his expertise. He joins the group, apologizes for his earlier outburst, and Shadow, more or less, accepts. He then tells them he has devised a different approach to the plan as the other ones are known now by the police. But before he continues, Shadow tells them to memorize the contact of a smuggler who has converted all their loot to dollars and the survivals. After the operation should meet with the smuggler at midnight, who then will take them to Togo. He warns them to lay low and not communicate with anyone via phones as that could be tracked. The following day, they set out in a boat. Kala, who is still uneased, receives a reassuring hand squeeze from Goldie as they advance toward the third mainland bridge. While the rest of the gang assumes the role of construction workers, Adura pretends to have car troubles. There is a lot of traffic because of the roadblock they set up, and their target bullion van is one of the vehicles. When they get offshore, with the use of a grappling hook, they made their way to the bridge. A policeman gets down from their van and is immediately shot. That's the signal the rest needed as they immediately get in position, shooting sporadically in the air and asking people to get down. Meanwhile, Wale is preparing a report at his desk, finally intending to come clean with everything he knows, when an officer enters to announce the ongoing robbery. The squad instantly prepares and departs. Some police officers were shot on the bridge, while others gave themselves up rather than risk being killed. The final officer inside the bullion van calls for assistance, but is forced out with gas and captured as the door is welded open. While the SWAT team approaches, they all pay homage to Daniel, as they owe this mission to him. While the gang move the bags of money to the boat, the SWAT team arrives and immediately a shootout ensues, with both sides having casualties. The gang proceeds to retreat while returning shots, killing 2 SWAT men and Sanusi getting killed also. Back at home, Auntie Marenica is shown a video of Poison being shot in the crossfire and recalls him from the wedding. She immediately set out as she realized Wale has been right all along. With the remaining gang members being few, Isra shoots Shadow twice as he aims to solely escape with the money. When he gets to the boat, he shoots the man there after he lied to him that they were the last survivals. Wale tries to persuade Akin into surrendering, but he responds with gunshots. Goldie attempts to flee to the boat but notices Isra departing. Shocked by his betrayal, she joins Kala as they flee on a bike, but is shot. The cops stop Auntie Marenica as she arrives on the scene screaming and calling out to Kala. Kala hugs Goldie as she dies, giving her one last look before grabbing a handgun to exact revenge. Wale disarms himself and begs Akin to surrender. It appears that this is his only option. However, Simon shoots him before he could make a decision because he misinterpreted his abrupt hand movement for an attack. Simon then shoots him twice, despite Wale's pleas for a hold fire, revealing that the initial shot was not an error but rather retribution for Daniel's death. He tumbles into the river, and the cops fire to ensure his death. Wale tries to stop them but is restrained. Later, Isra meets with the smuggler who is unconcerned of the death of the rest of the gang. He leaves Isra to go make preparations. Back at the bridge, Kala's body isn't found and Internal Affairs comes for Wale, which means Daniel did report him. Isra hears noises outside and goes to investigate. Finding it to be a goat, he returns inside, but Kala is already inside, shotgun in hand, and shoots Isra before he could say anything. After some time had passed, we see Wale, who is on suspension with his young family. He gets a call, and when he answers, Kala says, "Policeman." He smirks, relieved that his worries are over. The movie ends with Kala driving into the sunset with Adura rather than Goldie. It is said that Shadow did not die. He is in custody receiving treatment, while police and Interpol are vigorously pursuing Kala and Adura, who are still on the run.